Well, hello and welcome, everybody. You are back with us on Paths to Pleasant Places. So, this is our monthly live event that we host here on LinkedIn, and it's part of a series that we have picked up. This is number 3, and we plan to be here every month for now on a Thursday, and usually the last Thursday of the month. That's what seems to be working out really well. So, just thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here and listening to what we want to share about breaking barriers and the judging mindset. And if you're back here listening to the replay, I'm glad that you're taking the time to come and join us. So we wanted to let you know that if you are here with us now live, or at any time when you're watching the replay, you'll see 3 little dots up in the top right-hand corner, and that'll take you to the event page and where you can add comments. So if you have thoughts about what we're sharing, input, we all learn from each other. So, ask questions. Feel free to do that. And every month we'll pick a topic that we believe our clients are navigating and where we're helping them take action. And we just hope that there's going to be something that'll inspire you in each of these conversations. So this month we are talking about the judge. And there's a lot to come into play with the judge. And the 3 of us have chosen to come at it from the 3 different aspects. So the judge is the leading saboteur, and we all have the judge in us: judge of self, judge of others, and judge of circumstances. And the judge, whether it be he or she, and loud or not, definitely impacts our lives. And there are ways and tools and thoughts that we are going to share today to help you work through that. So before we move into the judge, I just wanted to take a moment and let my fellow co-hosts introduce themselves. We are coaches from different corners of the globe, which is wonderful. And we each bring our own unique style of coaching, our talents and perspectives. And although we all use the tools from Positive Intelligence, we each have our own qualifications and other tools that we bring to the table. So with that, I'd love to get Kiri to just tell us where she is and a little bit about what you do.
Thank you so much, Carol. Ko kiri tōku ingoa. My name is Kitty McRae, based in Aotearoa, New Zealand. I'm a professional coach for professional women, and I love working with Indigenous women, building their impact and confidence in male-dominated industries.
So important. And over to you, Francesca.
Thank you, Carol. I am Francesca. I am based in Vancouver, Canada. I'm a certified business and organizational coach. I love working with small businesses, especially family-owned and women-led businesses, with leadership coaching and resilience to help them achieve personal and business skills.
Okay, and I am Carol Clegg, and I am your progress and achievement business coach. And I love working with solopreneurs who just find themselves spinning because they have too many things on their plate and needing to get clarity on where to go next, what to do next. I realize that we all learn differently, so I like to make a personalized accountability structure for you to help you make that consistent progress on your projects and navigate the negative thoughts that create blocks in your path. So, as I mentioned, we are dealing with the judge saboteur today, and we talk about the judge of self, and many people find that one the strongest, but they certainly interconnect. And so, with self, others, and circumstances, we'll find that this loud voice of the judge can hold us back in so many places. And so that's not only work, but it's our relationships, our well-being, our performance. It just can affect us in so many different ways. And so what we 3 have chosen today is that we're going to just look at the 3, the self, others, and circumstances, and we're each going to share our experience with that, and then just look into some tips and tools that might help you navigate if this resonates, if the stories resonate with you. So Francesca, I know that you were going to share a story with us about circumstances, judge your circumstances.
Yeah, thank you very much for a very nice introduction that you have given about how we judge situations and circumstances, and truly, aren't we all judges? And shouldn't we judge all things? But it pretty much depends on the mindset, the preconceived notions, the negative stereotyping, and the situational overlook that influences how we judge, situations and circumstances. And this brings me to an interesting story which I have come across severally during leadership training. It might be true, or maybe it's just intended to help create an understanding of a particular content. So the story is about two shoe salesmen in the 20th century era from London, England, who the company had appointed to make a trip to Africa with intention to explore the market and bring back information that would help the company make informed decision about expanding their operation into the continent of Africa. At that time, the shoe company was struggling and needed to scale and grow its business. These two salesmen, I don't know their real names, so I assume they are John and James. So John and James, went to Africa on, a first-hand market research opportunity, and within days, they were able to get around the villages of Africa. They observed all of the situations and circumstances that they found. And one thing struck both of them: no one wore shoes, everyone was barefooted. They saw several other, events and situations, men going about their day, women selling their stuff, kids playing in the fields, everyone looking happy and settled in. And they made their conclusions independently and differently based on what they saw. John was the first to call his headquarters in London to give his feedback. And he sent a very short telegraph that says, "Situation hopeless. No one wears shoes here. I'm coming back tomorrow." That was his feedback. Now, James, who was in the same situation, the same circumstance as John, also provided feedback to the headquarters. And what was James's feedback? James said, "Glorious opportunity. No one wears shoes here. Untapped market. Send inventory immediately." So imagine two different people, the same situation, the same circumstance, different judgment. And so the question that I've asked myself repeatedly, and I would like to ask those of you who are watching or with us here, is if John's feedback was the only information that the company had to make an informed decision about their market expansion, what would happen?
So limiting. I mean, if you think about it, that, they are sending somebody out into the field and trusting that that feedback is going to help them take the next step.
Thank you so much, Francesca. And absolutely, to understand what your mindset is when things happen, what advice would you give to the people, to us, and the people listening to this?
Yeah, actually, how you approach situation, how you judge a circumstance, the kind of mindset you bring into a situation determines the kind of judgment that you draw out of the situation. And I would recommend that instead of just fixating on what is bad about the situation, why not look for what could be an opportunity there? Instead of going with a fixed and preconceived mindset about the situation, why not approach the situation with curiosity, humility, and a source of empathy? Why not see from a different lens rather than being fixated on what is wrong, what is bad, what is negative, and blowing it out of proportion. So it's all about the mindset that we bring.
Mm, mm,
I love that. And what I'm visualizing is that whole looking at something like really close by and actually taking a helicopter view to be able to see the whole picture.
yeah.
And if
Absolutely.
I may, I'd like to share a story because the biggest judge that I have is the judge in self. And I have inner chatter. We all have inner chatter. My inner chatter started when my parents fought when I was a child. And I was inner chatter going, what am I doing wrong that's making them upset? And then my parents separated, and all my other friends had parents that were together. And I said to myself, I wasn't good enough because I no longer had parents that were together. And then I realized that we were poor. Now, I thought we were poor because we didn't have the house that others had. We didn't have the car that others had. We had home baking as opposed to bought food, and I was only allowed to buy my lunch on my birthday. And so I didn't want to invite friends over because I didn't feel as if my house was like their house. And it wasn't until I was an adult and I realized that my judging was not real. It was my aha moment that it was based on assumptions and how I saw myself. And that what I offered the world was so much more than whether I had parents together, whether we had money. It was who I was as a person. It really came true for me when I used to look at a friend of mine and think that she had the perfect life. Like I loved going to her place because it was a flash house, they had a flash car, they had all these puzzles, they had all this yummy food. And I thought she had the perfect house. And her father had a job that said manager in it. And then when we were adults, I heard that her parents had separated. And I heard that her father had been battling the bottle
Mm,
for all the time that they were together. And that the life that I perceived was perfect that my friend had wasn't. And so I realized that when I was judging myself not on facts, but on assumptions that I've made of other people. And it was a habit that became really real for me because when I lost my job through the redundancy, I looked at it personally as to what I'd done wrong. And it was draining. It was really draining. And so for me, that judge of self, as Francesca has shared, is around taking another lens on it. It's looking at it from a different perspective.
right. Powerful share. Thank you, Kerry, because what comes to mind, and I'm going to ask you, you're explaining how, and our voice can be so loud. That judge voice was obviously very loud for you growing up. As we move now into the tools that we're using, and specifically with positive intelligence, I would be saying to you now, Kerry, if you had to sit there for a moment, I don't want you to stay in that judging of self. I would say, where could we go to explore? Because when we allow our thoughts to rule and become so loud, my first thing is, what do you want to do with those thoughts?
Mm. So, if I may share, the first thing I want to do with those thoughts are acknowledge them. They're
Mhm.
completely normal. They're who I am. Like, don't try and block them out, but accept them and accept that they are actually something that I'm feeling that's real.
Mm.
And
And that,
then,
yeah,
sorry,
that I was going to say that I hear the word empathy next.
mm,
Could
and
you
then
apply that?
absolutely. And then it's actually like, as Francesca has said, do a bit of a zoom out. Like, actually be a bit kind to myself and think to myself, well, actually, this may not have gone as I would have liked, or I haven't performed perhaps as someone else may have performed, but my gosh, I've learned from this. And that's going to make me richer within myself going forward.
Absolutely. So would you agree that there's a gift to be found in this journey?
In every situation where I find I have judged myself, when I take that moment to have empathy with myself, to step out, I always can find a gift and opportunity. And my energy that was draining me when I was worrying about what I was done wrong actually increases significantly around the opportunity and the gift that actually exists from a situation that has occurred.
And for both of you, I don't know, Francesca and Kiri, I mean, at this stage now in your lives, how loud is your judge voice? What have you been able to do to quieten, Francesca?
Yeah, it's very interesting to hear uh, Kiri's experience with the inner chatter, which I think, most of us go through in different ways. And for me, moving to Canada, was a test in time about how my accent fits into the business space. When I initially, stepped out to showcase my business, one limited belief system that kept hitting me, which was more like the judge's voice, was that you have an accent. Your accent doesn't fit into the space. You don't speak like the rest of the people here. They're not going to take you serious. And I actually kind of believe this limiting thought for some time because oftentimes when I get an invitation to step on the stage, I will look for excuses not to show up because I was like, my accent doesn't fit it. But then I realized that accent is my unique identity, is about who I am. And I realized too that everybody from all walks of life, different race, different experiences, we come with a variety of accents. And that shouldn't stop how we interact and relate with one another. And so I took the bold step to step out there. I'm like, okay, let what is supposed to be, a sense of fear become a sense of grace for me to step onto the stage and, showcase myself without being battered by the judge that my asset doesn't fit in. So I was able to overcome that, but by first acknowledging that it's a problem and then finding the gift. The gift and opportunity was for me to show up as my authentic self. So that helps me to develop authenticity, which I know no one can take away from me.
Absolutely. And Kiri, how have you found that what works for you to quieten the
So
judge
first of
voice?
all, I would say that judge of self and the chatter is completely normal. We're not broken. It happens to me every day, and it probably happens to you every day. But actually, it's being kind to ourselves and looking at it from all the different perspectives to actually go, which is the way forward? What is going to be that gift and opportunity and learning that comes from this?
That, yeah, and that just brings me to the other part of the judge that we mentioned in the beginning, judge of others. And I think there's an interconnection between the harshness of how we judge ourselves and then step into judging others. It's not we feel better and therefore we can step into judging others. I think it's often an insecurity and perhaps sometimes a lack of confidence. But our judge does. It causes so much of our disappointment, anger, regret, shame, anxiety. So we do want ways that we want to recognize it. We want to give it the space and acknowledge, but we do want ways to reduce that chatter. And so some of the things that I have just thought of, judging others used to be fairly high on my list. And Francesca, I can relate to you, culturally, because moving here for us from South Africa, there was a lot of judging of others going on. And that was because we were a different culture and not fitting into or not knowing the culture of where we were coming to. And so, sometimes one can go ask yourself, well, what can I appreciate about the person that I'm judging? Stop for a moment. And then I think the other thing that sends us off down a rabbit hole is the thoughts that we allow to have in our head when we're looking at somebody or concerned about their reaction or their participation. I'm thinking in a work environment, you're judging others because they haven't brought something to the table that you were expecting them to bring to the table. Well, what are the thoughts in your head and are they true? Are they factual? Are they true? So just remembering that being curious, remembering that we don't know where somebody's been that day, what they're dealing with. And I'm thinking, Francesca, did you share the story with us previously, or Kiri, of the man sitting at the railway station with the kiddos that were going crazy and not realizing what the children had been through that day? There were people judging others and judging those circumstances. So, I think that we're not serving ourselves because it does create anxiety. And then what we'll discover is that we have other saboteurs that jump up and down and like to have a dance party, as we say, with the judge, and then fuel and facilitate that even more. And we're going to be digging into that in future episodes a little more about these other saboteurs that accompany, there are 9 of them that you'll hear us talking about, but then also the importance of the sage. So, being able to recognize, we talk about the story of having your hands on the hot stove. Does that serve us? Yes, it does, but for a moment, and then to help us move on. So, I don't know, thoughts on that?
I realize that when I am judging somebody else, because something hasn't happened as I thought it should, there is always a bit of a mirror that can be put up around what I could have done differently to get a different result. And sometimes it's around how I've communicated my expectations rather than what someone hasn't done.
Yeah.
How does it resonate with you?
Mhm. Yeah, and Carol and Kiri, when we judge others, we don't even have all the information. We just have bits and pieces of information. And so we cannot conclude anything based on the limited information that we have. If we do that, we could be utterly wrong. You saw a recent scenario play out with Kate Middleton for not showing up in public. The assumption was that, oh, she's having a divorce with her husband. And the press and social media went frenzy over the situation. It turned out she wasn't showing up because she just got diagnosed of cancer. And so I would advise that before we draw a conclusion about people or situations or circumstances, let's be a little bit more curious. Like Shizad would say, the curiosity of the anthropologist. Like, you want to look into every detail, you know, and be sure that you have all the information before you make conclusions. And also, let's assume positive intent about people we interact with. Since we don't have all the information, just if you have to make any assumptions, let it be positive. and let's
Absolutely.
not assumptions.
Right, yeah. And then I think there's absolutely the part where we need to look at training our mindset. And that's part of this mental fitness that we bring in, because if we allow our thoughts and our minds just to run rampant over us and tell us things that aren't true, we are going to remain in a situation of harshly judging others. So it's mindset, self-care, being present, and then questioning our thoughts. It's just so simple. Is that true? Do you have the facts to support that?
Absolutely, Carol. What I really love about what you've heard is that it is around what we can do. And we do have the power to do that within ourselves. And what's coming to mind for me is this word of mental fitness. And we all want physical fitness. We all want to be fitter. We all want to be healthier. We all want to be able to walk further or run further or bike further or do a different pose in yoga. There's always something that we want physically. However, our mental fitness, the working on the inside, there's so much power in that being able to let go, of being able to actually find the positive in things.
Yeah, and when you talk about mental fitness, it gives me a sense of courage that no matter how old we are, our brain is not too old to change. The brain is really very plastic, and this concept of neuroplasticity gives the brain the ability to change, depending on how it is trained. So we all have the opportunity to create new neural pathways, by engaging in some exercises, like going for a walk in the park, reading, playing musical instrument, traveling to new places, learning something new, or other, activities that help the brain to explore new neural pathways and become more strengthened. Because at the end of the day, is how strong is your mental muscles? The strength of your mental muscle helps you to develop the self command that keeps you from wanting to jump into negative judgment or negative belief system or negative interventions.
And the reward at the end of this all, the gift at the end of this all, is improvement in so many areas. So it's personal relationships, it's work relationships, it's self-care. So there's a reward at the end of doing the work and having a better sense of happiness and joy, which brings us back to ease and flow, right? It's the mantra, I think, for the three of us as coaches is we want ease and flow in your life, and we want to help you find it and get that. So with that, you've heard us talk about positive intelligence. You've heard us talk about saboteurs and the judge. And there actually is a complimentary assessment that you can do online that is provided by Positive Intelligence. So we invite you, if you're curious to find out more, reach out to one of us, to Francesca, Kiri, or myself. Just send us a DM or just message us in the comments and say, hey, I'd like to do that assessment, because all three of us would be happy to walk you through your results and let you know that there are some benefits to these saboteurs. We just tend to overuse them. So we would love to guide you through those results. So with that, I wanted to just share that, connect with Francesca. Her best place here is on LinkedIn, correct?
Yep.
Yep, find you here on LinkedIn. Kiri, I know she has got some one-on-one coaching with Move from Survive to Thrive, and you have a 3-month program that you have on offer.
Yes, a 3-month program. So please DM me, send a message. Be great to connect and really work with you on your positive mindset and your mental fitness. Because when I think about the mental fitness, I think about that there's a ripple effect and how many other people that it impacts. Absolutely. And you, Carol?
And for myself, staying with the subject that we've been talking about, I'm going to do a little mini workshop webinar on May the 9th, and I'll put that link in the comments of our event from today. So for those that have been here listening, for those that listen to the replay, thank you. And to my lovely co-hosts, co-coaches, thanks for joining me today.
Ngā mihi. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wonderful to be here.
Thank you.